Proceed, Mark. And absolutely having to lead in what we can call a VUCA, VUCA, environment. And that stands for being that the environment is often volatile, that it demands you to act quickly and think on your feet. And very often you're doing that in an environment which is totally unpredictable. Secondly, the U is for uncertainty. And, we're never really certain of what action we are going to take, whether that will, in actual fact, be the action that will be able to resolve the problem that we are facing. So we constantly are working in a complete uncertain area. And then also the environment of teaching has become exceptionally complex and dynamic. And, if you don't embrace that change constantly and actually work through those complexities, you will find that you could actually be operating in a period or an environment of complete chaos. And then also something that I have found is that we also work in environments that are often very ambiguous, that especially with the change now in technology, that we are not familiar with this in our expertise. We were not trained, and we have to constantly be learning. So that complete VUCA environment that we are constantly being exposed to. And then furthermore, what we also find that we need to do, and I always see that, is that we are polarity managers. We have various poles that we have to pull together. So if you look at a school, you have your parents that are your clients. Very often you may have a board that you're working with. In my case, I have a company that I report to. We are on the stock exchange in South Africa. So you have this board that you report to. You have your parents, you have your staff, and you have your students. And you have to pull all those poles together constantly to make sure that you are in an environment which is thriving. And that can be extremely stressful for a leader. So what can we do? What strategies can we put in place? For me is I love growing other leaders. So I love to collaborate with my staff. I love to see them actually leading, growing as leaders. I always feel that it's not just to have to try and keep your staff happy and your parents happy, but we always need to remember that we're doing it for that child. So basically all that I have to say at this stage. I could speak a lot on this, but I won't. I know there are other panelists as well.
You've actually left us at like a really wonderful point by mentioning collaboration, because I also believe that is absolutely fundamental when engaging in education, given just how significant it is to everyone's life, which then takes us to a question for you, Mudeo, on like, could you please also identify some more coping mechanisms or some effective strategies that school leaders can implement to help manage the stress and maintain a healthy work-life balance?
I think just to leverage on what Jenny has said, every school leader has levels of reporting too. So there are some, like if you own a school, you're accountable to yourself and to the society. There's that other larger accountability. If you're whatever school what you're in, Jenny has made it clear change is inevitable, and here in Kenya we are going through some pretty drastic change. For instance, I know in our sector we are all very worried about the finance bill and its impact. We are all literally right now sweating buckets and thinking, okay, where will I get July 1.5 for housing, and all the other taxes that come, and the cost of goods that have really impacted on school revenues, and not having the leeway to just, go to the parents again and say, okay, we've got to raise fees. Everybody is trying to cope with such big change that is hitting us left, right, and center. Leaders must regulate. If you're a leader, you must regulate how you react, because then the ones you're leading look at you for how they will react to what is happening. How you respond to adversity. So just to look at your question, I call it reframing. I think there's a word. Let me just use the word reframing, which is the conscious process of seeing a situation from a different perspective, and then looking at things at a long-term perspective. And once you do reframe whatever issues that you're dealing with, suddenly you begin to look at possible alternatives. You look for positives, the silver lining within challenges. And people begin to react to you when you do this. The people you're leading begin to see the solutions to a problem. You look for long-term perspectives. What do these issues mean for the long term? 1 year down the line, what is the big picture around here? You move from problem to opportunity. Once you begin to reframe challenges in that manner, you see the truth in others. You've got to learn how to see the truth in others. You question yourself, what is it you're missing? What is it I'm missing here? What are the differences in the opinions I'm hearing from everybody? You look for where you have more influence. In every set of problems, the change, the whatnot, in any teams that you're leading, there's always somewhere where a problem is easier sorted. You have teams that work with you better than others. Sometimes you may not even know that you have influence in those teams. Look for such positives when you're trying to deal with whatever challenges, changes are coming. When a challenge comes, you need to also just rephrase it and reframe it, so that then you can sort of break it down into chunks that can be sorted out. That way, you reduce focusing on negatives. You're avoiding that black and white doom and gloom thinking that is pretty common in teams. The larger an institution gets, you avoid running into overgeneralizations and making assumptions about solutions. We call it making, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me, those common phrases that we come along in leadership. So for me, those 6 strategies for reframing are what I constantly and consistently use in my experience. Yeah, thank you.
Aileen, you're muted.
Aileen? Apologies. Thank you so much, Madeo. Now, this next question is for you, Patricia. How can schools foster a culture of support and empathy within the leadership team to ensure that school leaders of every level feel valued and emotionally supported?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think I want to kick off just looking at the some of the data that Mark provided for us, and say that about 95% of heads or leaders feel negative or anxious or overwhelmed. He also presented to us another word, emotion contagion. The atmosphere in a school is critical for it to be productive. Now, when leaders, and I think I will use again another triangle, but this time not Jenny's, of a teacher, parent, and a school. I will use the triangle of the organization and the owners. And I've seen somebody asking about if the school owners, the directors are the ones who are right there. What then does that mean? Now, the institution definitely has a vision and a mission and a place, and all of these are usually very lofty visions and missions. What it is that the school is in existence for: transforming children's lives, equipping them for life, and so on. The reality of it on the ground, because we are emotional beings, if I'm in a place of where I feel insecure, it will be very difficult for me to produce the best that I can. Think of a hen laying eggs. The conditions have just got to be right for that hen to lay that particular egg, and for it then to hatch into a chick. So this triangle for me represents an institution or organization that provides programs, counseling programs, training programs, mentoring programs, care and wellness programs, where the leaders and the rest of us feel very, very secure, because we are appreciated as individuals. We are appreciated with our own personal contributions to the organization. Because as Maslow's hierarchy of needs provide, that every person wants to self-actualize, and every person wants to feel that there's a sense of belonging. So leaders, I think, for us to create that very, very enabling culture where staff will be self-driven, children will be self-driven, leaders will be self-driven. I think there has to be a sense that this is a society or a community or organization that deeply cares for us. And how do we demonstrate that? How do we communicate with each other? Do we attack one another, or do we listen to each other? Do we give each other feedback from a point of defensiveness? But I'd like you to grow, personal growth. So I think that kind of managing conflicts, managing challenges, a management style that is democratic, it's easy to say, but very difficult to realize. So let us support the leaders, to support all other leaders, what we call devolved leadership across the school, to understand the vision and the mission and communicate that appropriately and positively to create that enabling environment. Thank you.
Thank you once again for that response. So I kind of want us to switch tracks for a little bit, because we spent a lot of time talking about the kind of environment we need to create and cultivate in our schools in order to create a resilient and a safe work environment for our leaders and our teachers and our students. And I believe that professional development is a crucial part of cultivating this environment. So my question is to you, Mr. Indimuli. Like I said, professional development is crucial for continuous growth, but it can also add on to the workload of our school leaders. Therefore, how can schools strike a balance between providing relevant professional development and respecting their leaders' time and well-being?
Yeah, thank you, Eileen. That is quite a good question. I want to pick up from where Patricia has left, understanding the institutional motto and mission. And in addition to that, a school leader first should be able to understand his or her clients. Remember, we have the students, we have the parents, we have teachers, we have the board of management, and one set of clients that is always forgotten are the school workers, who play a very important role. And therefore, when we are looking at our professional development and those of the teachers and other workers working under us, we must ask ourselves two fundamental questions. One, is the training for the right purpose? What are the missing gaps or missing competences in all our players that I've mentioned above, missing, that would require us to have some professional growth? Am I having a challenge in management of the students? Am I having a challenge in relating with the board of management, in articulating the schools or the institution's vision and mission to them? Because once all these players do not understand, then it becomes a source of stress. The issue of targeted training. Because when you are not targeted, then chances are you will be going for professional growth that will not help the institutions, or sending people for trainings that they will not come back to assist the institutions. So it must be targeted. And when it is targeted, you identify, as I've already mentioned, the gaps, the competences that are missing, and once that is done, we now prioritize them based on the sensitivity and how serious those competences are missing in our institutions. So after identifying them, we will now prioritize to be able to identify players within the institutions, because you are not the only leader. There are other leaders you are working with, and therefore you will identify those to undertake certain trainings in order to meet the gap you've seen in the areas they are leading. If there are challenges in management of students, then you know what to handle with those who are heading discipline. If there are areas in management of finances, then those in the finance, you'll be able to identify areas for them to train. So identification is key. Otherwise, it is very important to be able to create a balance between trainings for management issues and training for leadership. Because we must identify those leaders and ourselves. Are we lacking management skills? Are they lacking management skills so that we take them for management training? Or are we lacking leadership skills? The danger that many leaders face is trying to take everybody for a particular kind of training, even having learned anything that will help them in their area of responsibilities that they have been given, apart from just the normal learning processes. As I've already said, we need to ask ourselves, how do we interact with the major players in the institutions? And I had mentioned them. How are we interacting with them? So training will be based on that. Otherwise, if we do not do that, there are chances of getting some training that will be even more stressful in handling the major players that you are having. For example, if you are having challenges in drug and substance abuse in the institution.
I hate to go off of the steam. It's so hot. Oh my God. Oh.
Sorry, I was saying, yeah, if you're having challenges with the drugs and substance abuse, you cannot take the leaders in that area who combat that training in finances. That's why I'm saying, let us identify the gaps, identify the challenges that are there, and prioritize the training. In addition to that, I would want to say that just like Stephen Covey says, let the first things remain first. We must always ensure that we understand the core functions of the institutions, so that any identification on what should be done must be within the core functions. And many schools will have mainly curriculum delivery, issues of guidance and counseling, a talent development, moral and spiritual growth of learners around those. So once we lose focus on the core functions of the institutions, then chances of us missing the rightful training will be there, and then it appears as if it is a bigger responsibility on the workload that you have. Then it will lead to stress. It will lead to what Mark has talked about, emotions in leadership. I would also say that as leaders, we must also take time to interact with our health matters here. For our schools, we have a partnership with the Chiromo hospital groups, just to take care of the mental health. When I notice the teacher is not reacting in the normal way I expect them to behave, then I would refer them to the hospital group and get some guidance and counseling on it. Then you discover that there are certain underlying things that you had not done that you would have assisted the teacher when you provide them with an opportunity to train. I think for now, Eileen, that is what I can share as far as that question is concerned. Thank you.
Okay, so I think following closely onto that, this idea of like training for leadership versus training for management, I think that's a really core distinction we need to all be appreciative of. And based on that distinction, my next question is for you, Patricia, and that is, how then do you help school leaders develop and enhance their own emotional intelligence? Because as Mark was saying in the very beginning, emotional intelligence is a core part of both leadership and management. So how, in your opinion, do you help school leaders enhance their abilities to do that?
Thank you. And allow me just to put a personal statement there. Indimulika, he seems to have really sharpened his emotional intelligence. He used the word empathy. You check, you notice, what can I do to support and to help? That's an emotionally intelligent leader. Because emotions, they come from our thoughts, what we spend our time thinking about. It affects our thoughts, affects our emotions, our feelings. And then from our feelings, we act. So you can imagine, as a leader, I haven't taken time to reflect. Because how then do I develop this emotional intelligence? I must take time to reflect on myself. First of all, as an individual, where I'm at. Yes, I'm a leader, but I'm also a human being. And the nature of our job is we interact on a daily basis. It's a social construction. It's a social interaction. You cannot get emotions out of this. You hear of some students say, I hate that subject because I hate that teacher. The two go together. And the child may end up failing. Yet, when they love a teacher, they can do anything to pass that subject. So how then do we develop this emotional intelligence? Number one is we must always take time to reflect. So even as leaders, do we take time out? Do we have a boundary we have created where I need to retreat? I need to go off and be on my own. I need to think about my leadership and its effect on others. Am I a good leader? Am I an AK leader? Am I a great leader? Am I a level 5 leader that looks outward and also looks inward? So I think for emotional intelligence to really have an impact, as Indimuli has really shared a wonderful example, we must develop that and enhance that habit of self-reflection. Because as Mark told us, self-awareness is key. And we live under this social construct. So how is it going to help us then regulate the decisions we make, the actions we take? A parent comes in, the parent is very, very unhappy. Something has happened to the child. The handling of the child was not good according to the parent. The parent is heated up. How then do you receive this parent? To calm them down first. Listen to them. Empathy. Put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of the teachers in the classroom who are feeling a little overwhelmed, who maybe the children are indisciplined. How then do you put yourself in the shoes of that teacher to help then regulate your decision and your actions so that you're managing others and you're managing issues in a positive way, in a calm, controlled way? I'm not saying let's not have emotions or feelings. As leaders, we need to be able to express those emotions that are negative or positive, but in a very calm and stable way, so that you do not then create extreme situations where people live in extreme fear. And therefore, another very important thing that we need to do as leaders is to learn to listen. Saying no when it is no, saying yes when it is yes, and to cultivate those relationships Kahi has talked about, interacting with others, not just in official settings. This team building thing we take lightly is so important. We go out there and roll on the grass with our teachers, with the other members of staff, so that they understand leaders are also human beings, and we react and interact in the same way as they do. But their expectations. So listening is a key skill, I think, to develop our emotional intelligence. And I'll end it at that by stating that leaders, we need to take time out to think, to reflect, rejuvenate, recharge, and then go back to the battlefield, because we need to be well equipped. Thank you very much.
Okay, like following closely onto that, your last words, Jenny, this next question is for you. So what does all of that look like in practice? As a school leader, what kind of policies and practices can you implement that can help provide meaningful support to, you know, like I said, every rung of leadership in your school?
So for me, what is important is that if the school is exceptionally well organized and the teachers know what is going to happen in the future, for example, that creates an area of security, so that the teachers aren't constantly being bombarded with things that they're not aware that is going to actually happen. So for me, it's really important that there is good structure, good boundaries that are put in place. And when I say boundaries, it's also, you know, I do sometimes I have an open door policy, but there are times when you have to actually say, please just wait. I need to actually do some work now. So you need to have time that is focused in your diary, almost, that you are able to do the work that you're supposed to do, the administration, but also time that you can go and spend with the staff and, you know, do the team building, and also make sure that the staff are able to access you. And that to me can be very frustrating at times, because it's a very time intensive work. So very often administrators will only get you doing a lot of the administration after hours, and that can lead to quite serious burnout. So as far as policies are concerned, I think it's important that, you know, when people are on leave, they are on leave. We have these holidays, and for me it's important that people have a break during a holiday. That is, you have to have time to rejuvenate. You can't keep on taking an axe and using it and chop down trees and never have time to sharpen it. Because if you do that,